you think AMI made the right decision with Shawn Rhoden not allowing him to? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, let's change the job description. Let's say he's a 7th grade school teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and your daughter, who's be about 13 or 12 or 13, and he's teaching I don't know, economics or science, and your daughter comes home and says, "Hey, Dad, my science teacher's charged with rape. There's a warrant out for his arrest. You read it on the news. Turn on here. Look at TMZ. Look what they're saying." Do you send your daughter to that class on Monday?
Mm-hmm.
Does the principal allow him to come to work?
Yeah, no way.
Yeah, it's like, look, you got to handle your business. I'm not saying you're guilty, but you're suspended until you finish what you have to do, because I think that's probably more important than you in here trying to teach these 7th graders with this type of a distraction and try to explain away your case and maybe talk yourself into a hole. You're better off handling your business. AMI, the airlines, the police department, the school district, the liquor store would put you on suspension. And
Mm-hmm.
if we're talking about sports, listen, Adrian Peterson spanked his child. He used like a switch or a Hot Wheel track or whatever, the same thing I used to get my ass beat by. And his child had marks on his body. His child. And the Minnesota Vikings got rid of him until they could establish whether or not this was child abuse. We're not talking about rape. We're talking about child abuse. And once he was, I don't want to say exonerated of the charges, but once the charges were mitigated through the court, he then got picked up by the Washington Redskins, didn't he? And he had a second shot. He didn't get banned he wasn't banned from the NFL. It ran its legal course, and they let him back in the NFL, and he resumed his career. Why would this be any different? Why would this be any different? So there should be something that's glaring in terms of a code of ethics, a code of conduct of unbecoming. Just the mere accusation in and of itself, anybody can bring a charge. But the fact that you're involved in the case means you are suspended until you resolve this case. And that's bottom line. So why would you then, if you do that, then why would you continue to promote someone that's caught up in a case like this? You have to do both, and you have to do it quick. You got to do it swift. And they did. It was swift justice, because if you leave that door open right now, it leaves the door open for people to come and inquire. It becomes a bigger story than the actual contest. And I trust and believe the Mr. Olympia has been around for 55 years. The Olympia is bigger than this. So we don't want this story to take on a life of its own and become the focal point where there's collateral damage to the good people that actually are doing the business of bodybuilding. You wouldn't want that distraction.
Right. Do you think if Shawn is found innocent, he has a career after this?
Well, he's 44 years old. Do you think if he won the Mr. Olympia this year that he'd be back next year? Probably. Unless he had a plan B and then he only wanted to win it twice. But I imagine that if he won it for the second time, it validates his existence, his greatness in the sport. And he may want to go after number 3 because these young guys can't catch him. So if he's healthy and there's nothing wrong with him, look at how old is Dexter Jackson? He won it in 2008. He could have sailed off into the sunset.
Yeah, right.
Here we are 11 years later at 50 years old, and he's still doing it. Shawn's 44.
Right.
So Shawn doesn't show any signs of aging, and he's beating a 50-year-old Dexter. So he has longevity and he has opportunity. This case right now is too big for him of a distraction, I believe, to be trying to do both simultaneously if he's exonerated. Now, if he's guilty, it answers all questions of what's going to happen next. But if he's exonerated, like Kevin Spacey was, Kevin Spacey was accused of, this.
Yeah, I just saw that on the news yesterday.
What was the accusation? He was brought in. He was brought in for what? I mean, the kid was 18 years old, and he was texting his girlfriend about being fondled in a public bar by Kevin Spacey, the actor, and he was grabbing his junk, and he was doing all these things, and he had all this text message communication. Brought him up on charges, went out to the universe that Kevin Spacey, you can call him a pedophile, but he was something, a molester, I guess, at that time, right? He was molesting the guy, and then they brought it to court 6 months later after Kevin Spacey's lost everything. He was a lead in some TV show. He had some stage production, and he had a legitimate career. All that shit went away.
Yeah, right away.
And then suddenly the phone that this kid was using to text his girlfriend disappeared, and the digital data, there were some deleted text messages that they couldn't explain. And then the kid took the fifth And then the kid missed a couple of court dates, and so they threw the entire case out. Nothing happens. It's a nothing burger.
Right.
Except Kevin Spacey's got the scarlet letter. Guilty or not, he can go around and tell the entire world, hey, this never happened because I wasn't found not guilty. They threw the case out. Well, if this girl winds up being a no-show or changes her mind, the damage is already done. So the only thing that Shawn can do is basically he's got a PhD in this industry. He's got an MBA.
Yeah.
He's got a doctorate degree in bodybuilding. So you come back and you do what you know best. If it's put that much of a sour taste in your mouth, now you're exonerated or you're found not guilty, and you sail off into the sunset and you develop another career. I don't know what his interests are. His interests may have just been being the best bodybuilder in the world and dealing with endorsements and shaking hands and kissing babies. That will stop. That's not happening anymore. That's not happening anymore. Even if he's not guilty, that is not happening. You're no longer Mr. Olympia in the eyes of a lot of people. You're a rapist.
Yeah.
And that's a harsh reality that he may be faced with, even if this girl disappears. And that's the problem with our judicial system, is that they try to protect the identity of the accuser. And the accused is left to make sure that he convinces the world he's innocent. And there is no such thing as innocent until proven guilty. The Central Part 5 proved that. If you didn't see that on Netflix, Part 5, they went to jail for 20 years. And they had DNA evidence that exonerated them. None of those boys had their DNA on it. And then they had a guy come forward and say, I did it. And they had to let him go. And they gave out $41 million. And people thought, wow, $41 million split 5 ways. That's $8 million a person. No. You know how much legal fees? And how much is a year of your life worth? What's your valuation on that?
Yeah.
Those guys had to pay their lawyers, and when they got done, they have no career, no job, no nothing. They got peanuts. They probably were left with some freaking bills.
Yeah.
In this scenario, as bad as it is, he's looking at 10, 15, 30 years of life.
Bodybuilding Heroes and Legends Volume 1 by John Hansen is the book that celebrates the golden age of bodybuilding. This was the era in which legends such as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sergio Oliva, Frank Zane, Robbie Robinson, Cal Skalak, and Mike Menser battled it out on stage for the biggest titles in bodybuilding. Read about some of the most exciting competitions that took place in the 1970s, including the Oliva-Schwarzenegger battles, Zane's first Olympia victory, and Skalak's controversial Mr. Olympia appearance, and much more. Filled with inspiring images of some of the greatest bodybuilders in the history of the sport, Bodybuilding Heroes and Legends Volume 1 is now available on Amazon.com, or email John directly at naturalolympia@gmail.com.